Good afternoon, everyone. Chris Ferryman here, coalition builder and founder of Bringing Humanity Together. Welcome today to our Bringing Humanity Together live stream. Today, of course, you know who it is. It's going to be Sharon Kara Sandy today. Can't miss another Sharon Kara, can you? You got to have more Sandy. I say yes. I don't know about you, but I say yes. Welcome, everyone. This is one of the three open forums under the Bringing Humanity Together umbrella, where people can discuss topics related to the workplace and humanity in the workplace in a very positive and constructive way. We want to know what the issues are out there that are facing people today, because it is our goal, our mission, our purpose, our calling to bring both employers and employees and bring that humanity back into the workforce. And remember, as always, we'll be going live every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, all at 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Feel free to invite your friends, your coworkers, colleagues, family, fur babies. You know how those lazy coworkers are. You know, you might be looking and saying, "Hey, where's the live stream? I want to be a part of it." You know, bring them on board. We'd love to have them too as well. And remember, as always, Sharon Kara's with Sandy's is every Tuesday. I host Conversation for Humanity on Wednesday, and on Thursday, Carla Finnegan hosts Humanity Happy Hour. And as you jump on, whether to be on our LinkedIn business page, not LinkedIn business page, but our Facebook business page, or LinkedIn Live, or on our YouTube channel, please feel free to comment in the chat where you actually are jumping on from and watching from. Please put any comments, questions, or concerns, show topics, whatever you want to do. And if you want to even join us live, the live links is already in the comment section of each of the platforms too as well. So just click that live link and we'll have you join us here, because we can have up to 10 people on at a time. So here is our host today, Miss Sandy Chernoff. Hello, Sandy.
Hi, Chris.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. I told you Canadian Thanksgiving was yesterday, which is why I wasn't at
Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I know American Thanksgiving's in November, but Canadian Thanksgiving is in October.
Does it always coincide with our Columbus Day?
No.
No. Okay.
But sometimes it does. It just sort of depends. But it's usually the second Monday in October. So anyway, Neil and I had a nice dinner.
Nice.
I went way out. I stuffed a turkey and I made fresh cranberry sauce and I made a side dish with yams, and we had pie for dessert.
Wow.
I steamed some veggies, so we had the stuffing, and yeah, so it was pretty good.
What's your favorite part?
My favorite part?
Uh-huh.
I actually like turkey. We don't have it very often, so but I really like yams, so the mixture that I made was very tasty. I mashed them and add a little bit of margarine and a lot of brown sugar.
Oh, so you like them sweet, huh?
But, the cranberry sauce, I like to make fresh. I know people buy canned cranberry sauce, but I like to buy cranberries and just make it fresh. It's not that hard to make. So
when I was growing up, my mother used to get out a little silver platter, and she would open up the can and slide it out of the can, and it was just this gel in the can, okay? For years, we thought that was cranberries, and that those little ridges that were formed by the can was for slicing purposes. And when I got out on my own and learned how to cook, and somebody said, "Hey, we're doing fresh cranberries," and I'm like, "They're fresh?" I never knew what that was. And then when I lived in Italy, I wanted to get a turkey, and they don't do like a Thanksgiving and stuff a turkey, and their turkeys aren't really big like we're used to. So here we were, Americans living in Milan, and I had a teacher friend of mine down at the American School of Milan help me get a turkey. And she went to her local butcher down in Pavia, that was south of Milan, and said, "Hey, we want a whole turkey." And they looked at us like we were crazy, because usually they'll use turkey like chicken.
yeah.
And so Friday comes along, we're all organized. We're going to do this big thing of 20 people on Saturday for Thanksgiving, even though Thanksgiving was on Thursday. But and I go down and pick up the turkey. and they don't have it. They had cut it up.
Oh, Carla. Yeah. Well, I didn't buy a big one. I only bought one that's about 10 or 11 pounds.
Yeah.
Because just for Yale and me, and I told Chris I've got enough left over for probably 3 more meals.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. Well, I did an 11-pounder for last Thanksgiving, and there were only 4 of us. So.
Yeah. Well, I
and
mean,
that was the smallest I could find.
Well, I purposely only bought a small one.
Uh-huh.
But, you know, I mean, I like sometimes when our kids were younger, we were always up at Whistler for Thanksgiving because that was always a weekend that we spent up there. So we used to do it up at Whistler. And so there were a few families that would get together.
Uh-huh.
And one of them, Marilyn used to do it a lot, and she keeps kosher. So she would bring up a kosher turkey.
What's a kosher turkey?
Well, it depends on how the animal is killed. That's what makes it kosher. Okay. And they're way more expensive.
Oh, wow.
The kosher meat, if you want to get a kosher roast, you know, a decent sized roast, it'll probably cost you $70. I mean, they're really expensive. It's very expensive. My son keeps kosher, but he doesn't eat a lot of meat. He does eat chicken, but he doesn't eat a lot of, they almost eat no red meat. And like I have to be really careful when I'm at his house because he has meat dishes and he has dairy dishes and he has meat pots and pans and dairy pots and pans and he has meat cutlery and dairy cutlery. And I have to be like, I have to pay attention to things so that I don't screw it up. Because if you screw it up, you got to bury it in the garden for a while, you know, until you make it kosher again.
Really? Wow.
So I have to really pay attention because I don't keep kosher. When Mark comes here, what I do is I do buy kosher chicken and, you know, different things. And then what I do is anything that I cook it in, I line the pan with foil so that it's not touching, you know, something that wasn't kosher before. So, you know, I'm very careful when he's here. Because some people keep kosher, but they only keep it at home. And so if they go out, they don't. But Mark is strictly kosher. Like where he lives, there are kosher restaurants. And because there's a lot of Jews where he lives. And so he can go out for dinner to restaurants. And many of his close friends also keep kosher. So, you know, and his mother-in-law doesn't. So whenever they go to her house, Mindy's got to, you know, do all the kinds of things that I do when Mark comes here, or else she just makes fish.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't realize those kind of, I think it's fascinating to learn those kind of
it's interesting.
practices. I wouldn't say that they're restrictions. It's their belief. And I think it's interesting. Things we don't even think about.
Well, and it's, you know, it's for Mark, it's something that he decided to do. I mean, when my kids were in high school, they both separately, but they both went to Israel on special programs for kids. And part of that trip was they took them to the death camps in Germany.
Ooh.
Yeah. And so when both Mark and Elisa came back, they spoke at some of the high schools about what they learned and what they saw, so that other kids can understand that, you know, this is something that you need to be aware of. You may not know anything about the Holocaust, but it's certainly something that happened. Yale and I also went on a community trip, and we went to all those places. And we had with us, actually, this was really funny. We had with us a guy who was a videographer. He wasn't Jewish, and he had what we called a Jewish experience by coming.
I bet he did.
And he actually cried at one of them.
I bet.
Because, you know, what they show you is all the luggage that was from these people and all the clothing and the shoes. They took everything away from them because, you know, basically they stripped them down, put them in the gas chambers and killed them.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, they had all this stuff. So there were all kinds of, at Auschwitz and Birkenau and all these places, there's rooms full of these things that they took away from them. If the Germans do anything, they keep really good records. I mean, you know, so there's no denying this happened.
Yeah.
It definitely happened. So it's kind of interesting. None of my family
That's sad.
yeah, fortunately was in that, because by the time that happened, my whole family was here. But, you know, a lot of people have parents or grandparents who either died or were, you know, in the camps. And it's a horrible, like one of my old friends who I went to kindergarten with, you can believe this. I've known Joe since we were 5. His parents and his older brother were in the camps. And Joe has just written a book. It's called Two Pieces of Cloth. And it's the story of his family that went through the Holocaust and what happened to them.
Wow.
So, you know, so it was kind of, I got his book. And
Wow.
because the Jewish Historical Society sent it to all the members, and we made donations. And so I called Joe and I said, I read your book. It was really good. He said, would you do me a favor? I said, sure. What do you want me to do? Write a review on Amazon. I went, okay, I'll do that. I said, I have a book too. He said, you do? I said, yeah, go on my website. So he went on my website and he bought the book. So I told him, I said, why don't you come over here? I haven't seen you for a long time. I want you to sign your book and I'll sign mine.
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
So
Wow.
we had fun. It was very nice to catch up with him. He's a lovely, lovely guy.
I
And
bet that was a hard book to write.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
Sort of speaking for his parents. His mom sort of got away, and she took his older brother Andy with her and went to relatives that she had in a different country. But her husband ended up in the labor camps, and actually he lived through it. And they came to Canada, and he started, the reason it's called Two Pieces of Cloth is he started a business here where he sold fabrics, and we even ended up owning the building. So, you know, he did very well. And I mean, they've sold the building now. And Andy lives in Israel, his brother. And his sister, he has a sister and she's in Toronto. So, but I knew them all.
Wow.
In fact, when Yale was in Israel the first time, he actually stayed at Andy's apartment.
Wow. So, Stephen, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well. Doing well.
Good to hear, Stephen. We like to hear that kind of comment. That's a good one.
We love positivity.
Oh yeah, you know. I most days, that's why I want to hear on Tuesdays. That's when I'm positive. But no, I've been taking care of grandkids today, so he's been a blessing. He'll probably crawl in here in a minute, so he's not a year old yet, so he comes in the room and loves to get involved.
Fair enough.
He's I've been working on having a lot of positive influence on them, so and
I think
I've been seeing a lot of your posts.
I think a lot of dogs think they're human. I mean, my daughter's dog definitely thinks she's a human. My daughter's planning to go away in December for a week. She wants Yale and me to take the dog for a week. Yeah, exactly, Chris.
I'll spoil her.
Well, the problem is that we're just not used to having, you know, a pet in the house.
Right.
You know, because we've never had one. So I actually phoned a couple friends to see if they would take the dog. And one of the couples who I thought would probably take it, my friend is going to have knee surgery. And Ellen said, I don't know what kind of shape I'm going to be in. She's having a full knee replacement. I said, okay.
She's not going to be one to walk a dog.
No. Well, this dog doesn't need to be walked, Carla.
We even get them out.
This dog doesn't walk. When my daughter takes her out for fresh air, she puts her in a backpack. She has a doggy backpack. Can you believe this? She walked over here yesterday with Apple in the backpack. She's come over with like that before. She also has, you know, something that you can put the dog in your front. And
like a baby carrier.
Yeah, exactly. But this one that she's using now, she's in the backpack, and it's really funny. She clips her in, and she's got little holes for her paws to stick out. I mean, it's just, it's really funny.
Nice.
Does she have a stroller for her?
Pardon?
Does she have a stroller for her?
No, I don't.
Not
think
yet.
so. But the dog is literally this big. I can hold Apple in my hand. She's a little fluff ball. She weighs 7 pounds.
Well, she's still got to go out and do her business, you know?
Well, no, she does it in the house. She's got pee pads and, you know,
pee pads? Wow.
And she's been trained. Like, even when she comes here, I have a pee pad. and she peed on the pad yesterday. So she knows that that's what she has to do. So she goes and she smells it, and then she pees on it.
Yeah.
You know, they smell everything.
Right. So, Miss Sandy, what is on tap today for our show today?
Well, do you have something you wanted to talk about, Chris?
Well, I was thinking about, are we just one blank away from being a part of something bigger than ourselves? What would that be for you, Miss Sandy?
Well, I agree. I think that, when you help others, when you sort of listen very carefully, listen, learn, lead. If you listen very carefully and you hear what others need, then I think that you have a really good chance of helping others. And I don't think there's a better feeling than helping others. I really don't. It's why I went into healthcare to begin with. And now I'm just helping people in a different way. I'm helping them to be the best they can be, so they can be, successful and happy in every aspect of their lives, because soft skills are the key to that. And as we've discussed before, unfortunately, they're not taught. Like, we're not even taught to listen. We're not even taught to listen. And I always tell people, hearing is an ability unless you're hearing impaired. Listening is an art. And it's very different from just hearing, because you need to focus. You need to pay attention. You need actually to, and I tell people, listening isn't just with your ears. You have to pay attention. So you have to listen with your eyes, your heart, and your mind, because the verbal part of the message is only 7%. You got to see the look on their face, the way they're standing. Are they upset? Are they concerned? Are they, like, what's going on? Because it shows us what really matters to these people. And then we need to figure out something to help them. And I really enjoy what I do, because I told you, I always have what's called a discussion interview before I start with a client, because I want to find out specifically what they are looking for. Like, what is your problem? So that I can make sure that the content of the session is going to meet those specific needs, because I want them to be happy. I want them to walk away with some new strategies and new approaches and new skills that are going to help them to deal with whatever's making them crazy. And so that's why I always have to have that meeting with them. Sometimes I do it in face-to-face, but sometimes I just do it over the phone, and occasionally I've done it on Skype. So it's just a matter of finding out what people are specifically looking for. Many, many trainers have a workshop for a topic. And I've worked for a company as a subcontractor that's actually in Toronto. And they are actually a payroll company, but they have a whole division on soft skills, and they hire facilitators across the country to provide the programs for their clients. But the feedback I've had almost every time I've done one of their sessions is the HR manager comes up to me and says, that wasn't really what we were expecting. Yeah. So in other words, they don't customize anything. They just have a workshop on a topic. The person who does the research for this, the content is very good. But again, if it doesn't address the specific needs of the client, it's not that helpful. So I always say to them, well, you should probably phone them and see if they'll, help you. But I know they won't, but I don't say that. But I said, but if they won't, and if you really want another session that's going to be specific for your needs, here's my card. Give me a shout, and I'll come and listen, and I will put together a program that's going to meet your specific needs. Because it's so important to do that. And generic workshops really don't work for most people, because everybody's different. Every person's needs are different. Every organization's needs are different. And you need to know what those are in order to serve them well.
And going back to our theme of this week about that one opportunity or that one moment that can really impact and change someone's lives, in the times that you've done all these workshops and lunch and learns, has there been that one time that really just excited you to such an extent that you really saw the light bulb go off and say, oh my gosh, they're all getting it. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. Has that happened to you?
There's no better feeling than seeing that look on people's faces. I'm not kidding you. And I see it a lot. I told you, I've worked with most of the big law firms downtown. And when I've come back, because I've done lots of workshops for them, mostly lunch and learns. And, some of them come up to me and goes, I'm still using that, just whatever. And, so I'm really happy that I'm helping them to be able to get along better with their bosses, because, a lot of lawyers have big egos. And even though they may realize they can't do the work they're trying to do without their secretary and without their staff, they're sometimes not that nice to them. And, it makes them, and of course, when somebody's feeling uncomfortable, they're going to make more mistakes. So then everybody gets more frustrated. So when I started doing them, the staff would look at me and they go, well, are the lawyers getting this? And I look at them and go, what do you think? They say, so what's the point? I said, well, here's the point. If you change your behavior, they're going to look at you differently, and likely it will change their behavior. Because I had one lawyer say to me, you're teaching my staff to be assertive? I said, yeah, I am. And I said, but it depends what you mean by assertive. Assertive means knowing what you want and asking for it in an honest and respectful way. It's not, being nasty. It's just a matter of reminding them that we're in this together. And so to blame me and yell at me doesn't help me. So let's be a team and let's do this together. And we have some clients who are very difficult. So let's figure out a way to deal with them more successfully. And, if I can help you and you can help me, then we're going to have more success with these people. So it's just a matter of, we're a team. We need to work together and we need to appreciate one another. You need to appreciate what I bring to the table, because you can't get your documentation done and you can't do a lot of the things without me. So you need to appreciate that we are a team.
Well, this is the time that we got to be able to say, name that comment. Now, is this a Brian comment or is it a Graham comment?
What could I do that would mean I'm contributing to something bigger than myself? Oh, that could be a Graham comment.
You are correct, Miss Sandy. That is a Graham comment.
Well, I think that, knowing, you might not realize, what to do, but if you listen to people, you can figure out what to do. And when you have done something that has helped someone, they will be appreciative, and you'll be able to tell by the look on their face and their body language that they're really happy with how you helped them. I mean, I've seen all kinds of, outcomes, and I've worked with so many different industries, and it's always very interesting. I think I told you that I worked with women in the construction industry, and I did a workshop on gender differences in communication. And I started out by looking at them and I said, ladies, you can't talk to your male colleagues the way you talk to your female colleagues. Their brains don't work the way ours do, and women tend to be anecdotal. So, after a while, they just quit listening to you. So that by the time you get to what's really important, they won't be hearing you anymore. So talk in short bullet points. When men want more detail, and sometimes they do, they will ask you for more detail. That's when you can give it to them. But otherwise, they won't hear what you're telling them because they'll have quit listening. And men have a nothing box in their brain. Women don't have that. Women never think nothing, but men do. And they get that sort of blank look on their face. Because I sometimes say to Yale, I said, what are you thinking? And he looks at me and goes, nothing. I said, yeah, that's what I thought. Women never think nothing. Their brains never stop. It's like,
I know.
It's just how we are. But you have to understand, there's something good that men are so clear and concise on a lot of things. There are some women who are like that too. But I think that it's a matter of understanding. Our brains are not wired the same, and we don't communicate in exactly the same way. And that's why it's very important to realize that when you are dealing with a lot of men, you have to shorten your discussion, in terms of what you're telling them, because after a while they just quit listening. And, because they just can't take all that information in. Women want to know, like sometimes when Yale comes home from work and I say to him, so how was your day? Fine.
Yeah. Same old thing.
No, so Carla, sometimes I say to him, did nothing happen?
Yeah,
Exactly.
I get that too. How was your day?
Yeah.
Oh, just like yesterday. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay.
Yeah.
But that's a typical male response, excepting for our friend who died, Chris. because our friend who died, there was a saying at the law school when Zish was teaching at UBC, and you know how a picture is worth 1,000 words? Zish would rather say the 1,000 words. He was quite the raconteur. He was, really, and the students liked him because he was so interesting, and he always had good stories to illustrate what he was talking about. But, it's just sort of a funny thing. There are some men that are like that, but not very many. Most men are sort of short.
I have not heard the word raconteur since I lived in France.
Wow.
I'm like, I know what she's talking about.
Sorry, Carla. Well, it's just, again, I think that, at least for me, there's nothing that gives me a better feeling than when I've helped somebody.
Well, that to me, when we talk about what we can do to be bigger than ourselves, it's not making it about you. It's about giving to other people.
Exactly.
Making everybody else better. And no matter who you encounter, always leave them better.
Well,
Always
exactly.
do what you can do to help them.
And it's honestly not that hard to do if you listen. You have to listen. And if you can do that, and then I give them feedback. So, so far I heard that this is the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. So here's what we can do about this. We can, introduce this. And I usually bring some of my handouts with me so I can actually show them the documentation. But if I do it on the phone, I send them the documentation and let them choose the pieces they think are going to be most beneficial to their people. And once they've done that, then I talk to them again. And so then we've decided what's going to be in the workshop. Then I put together the PowerPoint, and I also provide them with a fully documented syllabus so that the attendees don't have to take notes. I don't want them taking notes. I want them actively in their learning experience.
And that's one thing I love about what you do is a lot of companies will take an e-learning course and make it live and not make it pertinent to the group that they're talking to.
Yeah.
Whereas, yes, you have e-learning courses, but you also develop a workshop, lunch and learn, full day presentation based on what their specific needs are, because every organization is different.
Absolutely.
I know back when I was in school, one of the I can't remember if I did it before or after, but I ended up doing 2 projects. I was in charge of OSHA safety. And I hated all the videos and things that they had about OSHA safety, workplace safety, because none of it was really pertinent to what we did in healthcare. It was more industrial related. So I decided, okay, these are what you have to follow. So I'm going to come up with a PowerPoint that specifically addresses our particular practice to where people had a better understanding of how the OSHA safety regulations played a part in what they did every day.
Exactly.
And it's like what you're doing. Law firms are different than technical firms, and that gives you the ability to work with several different industries, which I think
it's been fascinating because I would never have thought that I would work with some of the industry. Like I have a fish meal company that's one of my clients. Really, who would think to go after a fish meal company? Right. But it's just, again, it's just a matter of sitting down and finding out what matters to these people so that you can make sure that you put together a program that's going to be meaningful and beneficial for them. Mm-hmm. And I also, because I have a degree in education, I structure my sessions where I teach us, some kind of a concept, and then I give them something to do. So either they answer a questionnaire and we debrief it, or they do something with a partner and we debrief it, or they do something in a group and we debrief it. Mm-hmm. And that way they get to try out what they just learned right away. And they also can ask more questions because I usually walk around while they're doing those things. And it's just a matter of having them actively involved in their learning experience because it's far more retentive than sitting there and listening to someone talking at you for 3 hours. Like when we went to university, you went into the classroom or the auditorium and the professor was down there somewhere at a podium and looked at you for like 55 minutes. Well, I'm sorry, unless they were very entertaining, it's very hard to just focus on somebody yakking at you for that long period of time. It's very difficult. Of course, we have to be crazy taking notes and everything. And so I don't do that. Like the one I'm doing on Thursday, for example, we're going to start with a game, and I'm bringing prizes. So they're going to number off, and each team is going to get an envelope full of colored Post-it notes. And my instructions are, make sure you take all the Post-it notes out of the envelope because you need every one of them. They all have a word on them, and you're going to make a sentence that defines active listening. And the first team to get it correct will get prizes.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just sort of think it's fun, but I want them to know specifically what we're going to be talking about for the next couple of hours. And, ultimately they will do a questionnaire, which I have. And then I'm going to put them into pairs, or I'll tell them they can pick a partner. And they're going to take turns being the speaker and the listener. And then we'll debrief how that went. And then I've got some other exercises for them to try with accountability. Because, accountability means if it's to be, it's up to me. And you have to be trustworthy and reliable and take responsibility for what you do. And if you don't do that, you're not a good team member because people can't rely on you. So it's very important to be accountable. And I've got several exercises for them to do with that. And again, it's just a matter of them being involved in their learning experience and coming up with solutions to things that they've struggled with. And the HR manager who hired me gave me 5 different scenarios.
Oh, awesome.
So I've hard copied them and I've put them on the slides, but at the very end of the session, I'm going to put them back into their 5 groups, and each group will get a hard copy scenario that they will be familiar with because she gave it to me, and they're going to have to resolve it. And then when I bring it up on the PowerPoint, I'll say, okay, which team has this one? Okay, good. So who wants to be the spokesman for your team? All right, so share it with the cohort. And what I usually do with those is I say, does anybody else want to weigh in on this? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I don't really care. But if somebody has another suggestion that team didn't come up with, then we should hear it. And this way, I told you also that sometimes people come up to me and they go, how did you know that stuff?
Yeah.
I said, well, your manager told me.
Yeah. No, I have a twist for you. A twist.
Okay.
Not a trick question or anything like that. But, when we talk about are we one step away from our dream and developing something bigger than ourselves? There's so many people that are entrepreneurs out there that have started their own businesses. And, you go through a period of, will it work? I think it's working. And then you have that self-doubt always gets in there sometimes, and you have to kick yourself in the pants. And then you've been doing this for 17 years?
Yeah.
So what was that journey like for you? And what advice would you give to people that are like literally one step away from achieving that success that is bigger than just them, that they are truly serving other people, to give them encouragement to keep going, that one more day, one more week, one more month, and not throw in the towel?
Well, the best advice I can give them is, and this was one of the things that I did a lot of networking when I started. So I met a lot of people who were entrepreneurs, many of them solopreneurs, as I was going to be, and talked to them and asked them what they did. I also met a couple of business coaches. And I think that if you're really struggling, the best thing to do is to find a business coach that you can relate to. And I have a couple that are really terrific. And I've given their names to people who were struggling. And I said, you know what, just phone this person and sit down with them. And they won't do things for you, but they will provide you with opportunities to ask questions, and they will challenge you with things to do and so on and so forth, which will help your business grow better. Plus, I think, as I told you, I was teaching in an entrepreneurial program at one of our universities.
That's right.
All of us who were teaching in it were entrepreneurs. And although each of us taught certain aspects of it, we could answer any of the questions because we'd already navigated the minefield. So it was good. Unfortunately, they've canceled that program, and all of us were completely shocked because 90 to 95% of every student who went through that program ended up with a successful business.
Wow.
And we were really proud of ourselves, Chris. And that's why we were so upset when they canceled the program, because not only was it good for them individually, to have a business, but they hired people. So it also gave jobs to other people. So we don't know why they canceled it. I think maybe the government pulled away the money. We don't know. And it was fun. I really
Did you
enjoyed
able
it.
to get together and develop your own program? Or did
Well,
you go your own way?
I'm still in touch with a number of the students, Carla, because a lot of them connected with me on LinkedIn. And sometimes I get questions from them. Sometimes I even get phone calls from them. I don't charge them.
Oh,
I just,
nice.
you know,
Yeah.
they got a question, I just answer it. And I'm just happy when they call me and, I ask them how they're doing. And most of them are doing pretty well. And that's because we provided them with the basics and with all the concepts and the business strategies that are, and the business practices that are common here in Canada. And I think I told you, I stand up at the front of the class and I go, see this face? It's a minority. Because I had everything in the audience. I had South Asians, I had Japanese, I had Chinese, I had blacks, I had Russians, I had Arabs. I mean, I'm not kidding you. I had everything under the sun in there. And most of them, and I also said to them, and looking around the room, I would imagine that English is not your first language. And because it's important for you to understand the concept for teaching, if I'm using words or you're not understanding, somebody needs to be brave enough to put up their hand. Because trust me, if you didn't understand me, 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 of your classmates didn't understand me either. So please be brave and stick up your hand and say, I'm not sure what you're telling me. And I will explain it in a different way or draw a picture or tell you a story or something that will help to illustrate it better.
Right.
And eventually they did that, they would. And I thanked them. I said, thank you very much. No problem. Let's discuss this in a different way. And, at the end, we had a potluck. We always had, sort of a
Nice.
have a little potluck lunch or something.
Well, international potluck.
Exactly. And some of them were starting restaurants, Carla. So, they would bring their, the foods from Thailand or from Japan or from Africa, didn't matter. And we would have just, a feast. I'm not kidding you, an interesting feast of different kinds of things. And it was really fun. And the students really liked it too. I mean, we just had a good time. And, what you want your students to do, whether it's an organization or it's an individual that you're coaching, you want them to enjoy their learning experience. But of course, you also want to provide them with meaningful and beneficial information so that they're going to be able to resolve whatever it is that's driving them crazy. And
So what was your journey like from entrepreneurship? I know your son bet you and said, go out and get some business cards, do it for real. And you're like, I am doing it for real, but I'm sure you probably hit some doubting moments when you're.
well, what happened was this, Carla, that I started with the large law firms because I knew a lot of lawyers and I knew that the large law firms had training budgets. And so I would phone the lawyers and of course they just say, I don't do that, phone HR. So I quit phoning the lawyers and I would just phone up the law firm and ask to speak to HR. But after doing that for a couple of months, I sort of stepped back and I thought, how's anyone going to know you're doing this? So then I got out the yellow pages and I found every professional
For
organization.
those of you that don't know what that is, we used to have a paper phone book.
Yeah.
I know, it's amazing, but
I know I'm old, sorry. And I phoned all these professional organizations and I asked them the following questions. Do you have an annual conference? And do you provide continuing education courses to your members? Because most professions require that you do continuing ed to maintain your license. So I said, well, would you be interested in the programming that I could offer for you? And so I started speaking at these large professional conferences and I started doing continuing ed. And I also did I phoned all the universities too. And I phoned their continuing ed departments and asked if they would like me to do some of these things. So, it's just a matter of what did you do? So after that, it just took off, Carla. Then, and I also brought my business cards along. And here's the funny thing. I thought they'd ask for my business card. No, they wanted to know if I had a website. And back then, 17 years ago, I wasn't even sure what a website was. So I go back to my daughter, and my daughter says to me, well, Caitlin, one of my nieces, my brother's daughter, is dabbling in web design in high school. I said, really?
we still had AOL dial-up back then.
So I went over to my brother's house with my new business card, sat down with Caitlin, and she made my first website. And I used it as a virtual brochure, if you will. But then I realized that people got business through their website. I wasn't getting any business. So I go back to my kids. And of course, my daughter looks at me like I've landed from the moon. And she goes, "You need your SEO fixed." And I go, "What?" I didn't even know what that was. And that's when she connected me with Nathaniel, Chris. And so I sent him, the link to my website. He called me and he said, "Well," he said, "you have this lovely artistic flash page on the front of your website with an enter button." He said, "It completely blocks you from the internet." So that's the first thing that has to go. And then, of course, he started speaking text speak to me. So I stopped him. I said, "Nathaniel, you might as well be speaking Martian. I have no idea what you're telling me. Just tell me in plain English what you need from me, and I'll be very happy to provide it for you." So he started to laugh. And I said, "You'll just have to deal with me. Eventually, I know what all those things are now, but back then I had no idea what he was telling me." And so for about $300, he basically rebuilt my website, and he meta-tagged things, and he, did keywords, and he backlinked, and, whatever he had to do to make the SEO work. And
Right.
of course, learned that there are lots of things you can do, which is why I blog on my sites, why I have a page of all my speaking engagements. And wherever I have a workshop, I backlink it to the workshop page. I mean, I've learned how to do a lot of these things. Every once in a while, something weird happens because, with technology, weird things happen. So when it does, I just send it to Nathaniel. I go, "I don't know what the hell this is. Fix it and send me a bill."
So it sounds like things have pretty organically grown throughout the years. Did you ever have a moment where you're going, "I don't know whether this is going to work or not"? Or when was it you said, "Oh, wow, this is really working"?
No, I actually never had that, Carla, because, I had a lot of work through the law firms initially. And then the next thing I did is, like, one of the organizations that I spoke at was the Greater Vancouver Home Builders Association. I have a lot of construction clients. And whenever I gave a talk to that organization, I always got at least 3 or 4 new clients.
Wow.
Wow.
So, that was another expansion into a different area. But again, I still get 80 to 90% of my new contracts via inquiries through my website, because as I've mentioned to Chris many times, what we're doing, push marketing doesn't work. Because either people want to do something, know they need something, otherwise they don't care. And they literally do not care. So when an organization or an individual has a problem, they Google the problem. That's why the SEO is so important.
That is true. And see, what I like to be able to do is bring Stephen into the conversation and get his thoughts on everything of what he's been hearing. So what's your thoughts right now, Stephen, today of what we've been talking about, what originally started off with Graham about what it could mean that if I can be contributing to something bigger than myself. And this is, of course, another Brianism, ask bigger questions. And then he come back and says, "More text? How do I ask bigger questions?" So, Stephen, I'll go to you. What's your thoughts on all that?
Well, there's a lot of similarities in what Sandra's been doing that I've been doing for the last 9 years, except I did it within a factory setting. Basically, the company I was working for gave me the task to offer soft skills to the employees, and so we went on that journey, and that journey took us to a mentorship program where we built a mentorship program inside the company where the people that was volunteering that wanted information about the soft skills and how to use them to solve problems. I believe that my biggest question about all of it, I'll just have to backtrack a little bit. My brains, I think I got a woman's brain, so I'm a man with a woman's brain. Okay.
Okay, Steven.
I spoke up everything that you were saying. I actually listened. Okay. I didn't check out. Okay.
Good for you.
So I learned a lot from what you were saying, and but it all means something to me, and but that connection with people, that getting people to knowing the problem that the people have, and then get them the right answers. But the biggest thing I always worked on was having them work the problems themselves. Not giving them the answers, and having them learn the skills to figure the problem out.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting that I think these things are going on all over the world with people. People are like us are having conversations about where humanity's going, and how how we've done business over the years, and how people were expendable.
Right.
And I went through that, and because I was trained to be like that.
Well, Stephen, I totally agree with you. That's where it all starts.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with having that conversation. Understand where people are at. And if you meet them where they are at and not expecting you to go, hey, you got to come to where I'm at, that's not going to build that bridge for humanity. It really isn't. Because if you meet people where they are and you ask an engaging question with them, or say, hey, I want to be a guide with you on this journey to find out how we can solve this issue, or find a better way of doing and better way of leading, or whatever that might be. I believe that is a path forward, because again, I will go back to this yet again. Create better environments creates better results. And if you be able to do that, and you, of course, Sandy loves this one, listen, learn, and lead. John C. Maxwell, how simple is that? I truly believe that that's going to be a way forward for all of us.
Yep. It's the only way, Chris, because again, you can't learn anything when you talk. You can only learn things when you listen, and you can't listen and talk at the same time. So, in order to help people, we have to sit down with them and listen to what they have to say and what they're grappling with and what they're struggling with. And I always gave feedback. So I just wanted to make sure that I was on the same page and I actually heard what they said, and that, I recognized it. And so I would say, okay, well, so far you said this, is that correct? Okay, so here's what we can do about that. And then you mentioned this, and, and that way we could discuss and make sure that I had heard them correctly and that I understood where they were coming from, so that I could make sure that I was going to provide them with different elements and different facets that were going to help them with this issue, whatever it may be. And Stephen, what I often do with my exercises is I give them a scenario, that usually their HR manager has given me. And it's something they're familiar with, but they've struggled with. They don't get a good result with it. So now they're going to apply the new things that they've learned to resolve this in a better way. And, the other thing, when I do managerial training, I always tell managers, don't finger point and blame. Human beings are very imperfect creatures. Mistakes are going to be made. Mistakes are opportunities to learn. And if you finger point and blame and yell at people, they're going to make more mistakes. But instead, if you have a private, quiet conversation, you say, so Chris, looks like we have a little problem here. Why don't you come into my office and let's have a look at it? Okay, so what do you think happened here? Okay, so what options do you think you have for fixing the outcome? And, I'm sure that you would come up with things, Chris. And then I would say, if I had an extra idea that you didn't come up with, can I offer you one other idea? And then I would say, okay, so before you go to fix this, and I know you're going to be able to handle it very well because you came up with very good ideas. The next time you're faced with this situation, what do you think you could do so that you don't end up with this outcome? Like, how would you handle it in a different way? And that way, Stephen, you make them problem solve. You make them sort of think what they could do. And then, again, I say, well, that's really good, Chris. Okay, and you go ahead and listen. If you run into any snags and you have trouble doing what you want to do, you come back and I'm going to help you. No problem.
So I can come back to you, Sandy?
Yes.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah. And if you handle it that way, and if the employees know that the manager has their back, in terms of, first of all, they're there to support them and encourage them and help them work through things. And then if they are having trouble resolving the issue, that you can go back to them and they will help you. And that's a whole different atmosphere, if you will, because otherwise the next time somebody makes a mistake, instead of, owning up to it, they're going to cover it up because they don't want to get yelled at again and whatever. And everybody else is walking around on eggshells because they're wondering when they're going to get yelled at, which is what happened with that stupid guy that I worked for a while.
Right.
And, so it's a matter of how are you dealing with things? And if the manager or the leader, whatever you want to call the person, handles it in that way so that the employee knows that you have their back, they're not going to cover up their mistakes. They're going to come to you for some help and for some discussion. And because when mistakes are covered up, they just usually end up bigger problems. Mm-hmm. We don't want people doing that. We want them responsible for what they do. They got to own their mistakes. And that's okay. We all make mistakes. And the best part is if a manager makes a mistake and owns up to it. That was my mistake, guys. I'm really sorry. Here's what I'm going to do to fix it. That's a huge example to the team that, if the manager owns up to their mistakes, it shows they're human too, just like everybody else. We all make mistakes. And so it's just a matter of what are you going to do about that mistake? It's an opportunity to learn. Like I always say to people, you think the Wright brothers got the airplane business all right in the first try? No way. They made lots of mistakes. And every time something didn't work out right, they had to step back, go, oh, well, that didn't work. What else can we try?
Well, see, this is what I found out, especially building this great organization and team in the way that I have. I've recognized, number one, there's going to be some questions that I can't really answer for myself. And I can have to go out to Sandy, Carla, Anno, Steven, Ryan, Graham, and say, hey, I don't know the answer to this, but maybe you can help me into this. And it's like what Brian just said to Graham.
Ask bigger questions.
Ask bigger questions. And I believe the more that I've did this, like I said, since I started on this journey, there was those times I was literally banging my head against the wall and thinking to myself, I don't know this. What am I doing? How can I do it? And see, that's when I had to take a step back and say, you know what? I don't have to know it all. I can know what I need to know at that given point. And when it comes to reference of what this week's theme is about being that one blank away from being a part of something bigger than, and just insert whatever you want to in there, I've recognized for me to be a part of something bigger than myself, for me, it's about learning to let go. If I can let go of what I fear to lose, then I have nothing to fear and then I have nothing to lose. Especially when I go out to that person, whether it be in a team dynamic, a one-on-one dynamic, whatever that might be, I can just be, number one, myself, come in truly authentically about who I am and where I'm doing, and respect the space and opportunity that is there. And I've learned this from Brian Sumner so much is when you take a conversation or an opportunity that comes before you and you recognize it on these three fronts. Number one, I can literally understand what is going on at any given moment in time. I can recognize that and say, hey, I'm going to understand this. I'm going to do that. And that comes from intentionality too as well. So if we're intent to understand that, that's going to be a great way forward. But then number two, I can also, in that same instance too as well, I can buy into anything that was happening to me at any given time. Whatever Carla's telling me, whatever Steven's telling me, whatever Sandy's telling me, or Brian or Graham, whatever, I can just jump right in and buy into it. Great, got it, good, I understand that. But then on three, I don't have at any given moment, at any given time, I don't have to buy into anything. I can just say, nope, not for me. This is not what I want to do. I want to end up doing it from this perspective. But then again, I recognize on each of those 3 points, I can be respectful of everything on everyone that has been in that conversation or that opportunity because I truly believe in that. And more often than not, if we don't let the conversation or opportunity be for what it is, and it's like what Brian has taught me so well in, there can be even a point of transformation that comes out of that. To me, that transformation could be that one critical thing that really gets you from X to X because you allowed that to occur.
I actually think it's good when managers show vulnerability because I think it shows their team and it shows the employees that they're human too, because nobody's perfect. Nobody is. And I think that when they are accountable and admit that they've made a mistake and how they're going to fix it, I think that it's the walk, it's not talking the talk, it's walking the walk. And so they've exemplified what they want other people to do. And I think that has a much bigger impact on the team than just talking the talk.
Well, managers have bad days too, just like everybody else.
Well, they're human, Carla.
They may have family issues going on, and they're doing the best they can at that particular moment to juggle the job and family issues, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
And you've got a team that all works together, and the manager is a leader and not a manager. You're all in the same boat together, rowing together.
Exactly.
And it's okay to make mistakes for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
They're learning opportunities.
Well, and you just got to fix them. That's where the problem solving issue comes in, and only positive people can problem solve. People who are negative just wallow in the mistake.
They just bitch and moan.
Yeah. Well, like I told you, there's bounces. There's splatters.
It's great to be able to be a manager or a leader and allow people to make mistakes and work with them on that, but also to be open to say, this is the way I foresee it being done. Do you have a better way? And letting those people make suggestions for a better way and say, okay, let's try it out for 30 days or whatever. Let's try it out for a week and let's see what happens. And everybody might find that there are pitfalls in what they were trying to do. So you look at it and you go, okay, we're not quite there. What can we do? We've found this trouble. What can we do to change it? And everybody has a part in it to make it better. And so if a leader is open to suggestions from everybody else is going to be more creative. And it's going to be a win for the company, and it's going to be a win for the team.
Well, because then they get listened to, Carla. Mm-hmm. As long as the leader doesn't take credit for something that someone else suggested, then we're all good. Because sometimes there are people who do that too.
Yeah,
that's not very good.
Yeah, I've encountered those.
Yeah, but it basically is just a matter of what are we doing? And if we want to be a part of something bigger, we need to step back and listen to people and figure out how we can be part of that bigger thing. And the more that we help people and we listen to them and we provide them with what they need, the better chance we have of really changing things in an organization and helping them to, be more successful and be long lasting and, all those good things. And again, it's not really that hard. But we have to listen. That's really the most important thing we have to do. And as I've said a million times before, active listening is the most important communication skill, because without it, we end up with resentment, disappointment, confusion, miscommunication, all kinds of bad things. So we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that we are paying attention to each other. And that's when we have the opportunity to learn from one another and to lead better, because when we understand people better and know what matters to them or what they want to learn or what they want to do or, whatever, then we have the chance to really help them be the best they can be. And when people are able to fulfill their potential, their self-esteem grows and their confidence grows, and then they work better. You
have to be there for the team and not for yourself.
Exactly. It's a win-win for everybody. If the team functions well and it's a high-performance team, then we're going to be able to accomplish whatever we set out to accomplish. But if we've got all kinds of, things working at odds with one another, not so good. The team is a reflection of the team leader. So if you have a good team leader, you're more likely to have a good team.
Well, Graham just said that. He said, creating a creative environment. He says, I like this, with a smiley face on.
Yeah.
But, I will go back to this. Simply just let the environment be for what it's intended from each individual person on the team. I truly believe, and I'll go to Stephen here in a second, but I truly believe when we let people embrace their skills, talents, gifts, everything that makes them who they are, and then we embrace that and just let them be, that's how the environment will show up to them in a way that they can say, hey, this is the model of the world that I work under. But also, I'm given the freedom to recognize that the things that I bring to the table is going to be of great, not only of impact, but also of great significance because I'm allowing that to occur in the way it works for me. But also, I can step out of that model of the world or that environment and recognize what Sandy's bringing to the table, what Carla's bringing to the table, what Stephen is bringing to the table, Brian, Graham, whoever that might be. And I think that will be a great thing. And this is what it's got to be a Brianism here. It's easy to blame others for mistakes in the workplace, and it's funny how employees are so quick to point fingers to others. And then, suppose discovering and generating from the source of creativity would be more beneficial. That's what probably Brian said back over to Graham. So, Stephen, what's your thoughts?
Well, I've taken over different teams over the years, and one of the main things I've seen was fear. People were scared to make decisions. I've walked in, taken over departments before, and as soon as they saw that I was going to be a leader and not a manager, the next day I'd have 10 people looking at me asking questions. They're like, I'm like, okay. I'm just one at a time. I mean, you're asking the same questions he's asking, except a little bit different. So, and I've spent a lot of years attempting and failing at leading other men and women to be leaders. And there's a lot of fear, the fear of failure, and they're just scared. And so from a creative standpoint, I've always been, instead of answering a lot of questions, I ask a few questions and let them answer it, because most of the time, it's like the old lean tool. You call it the 5 why. You ask why 5 times, and most of the time you got the answer. And you just ask it, and everybody comes up with that answer. And but I just wonder how to get back into the workplace and turn managers into leaders, and let the people manage the process and all that stuff. But how do we get to be turn people into leaders? Some people say people are born leaders. I had one boss said, "Hey, I believe everybody's born a leader. You're either a leader or you're not."
I think it starts with how we let go and let people work together in an organization. And I think some of, whether it be school or business or jobs or whatever, some of the best teachers or leaders that I've ever had are the ones that didn't spoon feed me the answers. They made me think. And so when you have a leader that fosters a creative environment for people to come up with solutions collectively, that's where leadership starts. And yes, you might in a corporate structure be considered a manager, but you should be leading your people towards getting a task done, towards getting a project done, whatever it is that you all are supposed to be doing. Whether you're increasing your customer satisfaction, you're increasing your production, whatever that happens to be, you're in there with them, not sitting back saying, you got to do this, that, or the other. You're in there with them and you're leading them like a mama duck. Okay, you're right there with your children, and they're not your children, but you get the visual that you're not sitting up on a throne and dictating to people. You're in it to win it with them.
Well,
And
see,
that's
why
where
I
that
found out.
leadership starts.
Yeah, that's why I found out so many years ago, Carlin. You bring up a great point. There's a huge distinction in working for somebody and working with somebody. And that's the thing that is, I truly believe that is the big one thing that can really shape the way we view leadership moving forward. If we are really truly wanting to be leaders, not just a manager, but a true leader, I truly believe that when we work with others and recognize where they're wanting to go, how they want to get there, how can we help them get there from a true place of leadership? And this got to be another Brianism, I guarantee you.
Well, Chris, that's exactly what I do in our organization. When I tell people, if you'd like to join our organization, we'll work together. And I tell them that I'm not your boss. You're not accountable to me. You're accountable to yourself. They're like, huh? And I said, I will lead you to help you get where you want to go. But it's up to you to do it. And not that I'm just going to sit up there and say, do this, that, or the other. We're doing it together.
And Stephen, you brought up a really good point about fear. Fear holds people back. When they're fearful, they don't move forward with things, they miss opportunities, and they don't get things done. So it's really important to overcome your fear and move forward. I mean, sometimes that's hard to do, but it's very important if you're going to accomplish anything and if you're going to have an intention to accomplish anything. Because I think I said this the other day, Chris, there's two kinds of people. There's splatters and there's bouncers. And the people who are splatters, when something goes wrong and they fall down, they stick to the ground and they don't get up because they're stuck. Bouncers fall down and then they bounce back up again because they're going to do something about that. They're not going to stay on the ground. So it's a matter, are you wallowing in your mistakes or are you stepping back and problem solving? And positive people are more likely to problem solve than to lay there and wallow in the mistake. That doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help you, and it doesn't help anybody else.
Self-doubt also blocks people from doing anything. You may have a great suggestion for your team. Maybe out of fear, you're not approaching anybody to recommend it, or maybe you feel like you could. Even before you get there, your self-doubt is keeping you from even stepping up to saying, hey, guys, what do you think about this?
Exactly, Carla. And it's so sad to see people doing that to themselves because they're doing it to themselves. Mm-hmm. And it's a very sad thing to see. So people need to understand that if they're going to move forward and they're going to be successful in the things that they do and they're going to accomplish what they want to accomplish, they can't be holding themselves back with fear and doubt. And it doesn't work.
Those limiting beliefs will stop you every time.
Absolutely.
Cause inaction.
Yep. So it's not worth it. You're going to listen to John Maxwell again?
Yeah, this is from Friday.
Yes, it is. Here is Ed Millett.
And I would recommend anybody, if you want to meet somebody encouraging, follow him on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. He's awesome.
Yeah. And what he's talking about here to kind of give people a little bit of context to what he's talking about. He's talking about belief. But his Ed Millett is talking about belief.
You don't have to believe what I'm saying to be persuaded by me. You have to believe I believe what I said. That's a massive difference. So many of you are spending all your time trying to get people to believe what you're saying. Your energy comes across as desperate, as a beggar, as less than, as secondary. You cannot overwhelm somebody with influence when you're constantly trying to get people to believe what you're saying. But if they believe you believe what you're saying, which is a completely different positioning, different intentionality, now you're somebody of persuasion. Everybody with me on that? Say yes.
Now, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. He was awesome. Truly awesome.
Well, but see, that's all, that's positivity. And that's also being an effective communicator. And that's why communication is so key. It's key to every aspect of our lives. And it's certainly key in leadership and in teamwork. If we can't communicate effectively, we're going to end up with all kinds of miscommunication and confusion and resentment and disappointment and all sorts of things that don't help us. And of course, during this pandemic, the last thing we need is more stress. So all those things cause stress. We just don't need that. So it's a matter of coming forward with a positive attitude. And again, the only thing we can control in our lives is our attitude. No one's life is a long, straight, smooth road. It doesn't work that way. There are going to be all kinds of issues that we have to face. So just step back and say, okay, what can we do with this? And if you can't come up with a really good answer, get some help. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. Absolutely nothing wrong with asking for help, especially if you know someone who maybe has experience with this kind of situation, and go to them and say, this is what happened. I know you have experience. What would you suggest? It's just a matter of, you'll make them feel good anyway. It's just a matter of not wallowing in things that happen and not letting your fears and your self-limiting ideas and all that stuff hold you back.
Be a bouncer.
Yeah, exactly. People who do that never move forward. They never accomplish very much, and they're missing out. You have to let that stuff go. You just let it slide off of you and stand up and go, okay, you know what? I can fix this.
There's so many people that are like, well, this happened and that happened and whatever happened and oh, woe is me. And there was one person I know that, I mean, he's a great guy, but he would look at you and go, so what? Now what? What are you going to do about it? Are you going to be a splatter or are you going to be a bouncer?
Yep. And it's just a matter of again, we have control over our attitude. We can decide to be negative or we can decide to be positive. And it's not much fun to be around negative people. They're kind of depressing to be around. It's much more comfortable and nicer to be around positive people who are willing to step back, solve and deal with things. And when you surround yourself with those kind of people, it changes the whole atmosphere. It's just an entirely different atmosphere. And that's a much more progressive and forward moving and forward thinking kind of approach to things. And yes, sometimes it's not easy to be positive. There's no question about that. But the people who are move forward and they problem solve more effectively.
Yeah.
Because they will step back and go, okay, we have a problem here. So what can we do? What are our options? And let's look at them and let's see which one we think is the best. Or which ones we think are the best, because maybe we have to do more than one thing. But if we can't do that, we can't move forward. And so people get stuck. And that's a really terrible place to be, is stuck.
Right. So let's go around the room with our call to action today from our great conversation with not only Graham and Brian, which again, thank you, gentlemen, for being on. I'm still waiting for a dinner.
With their own call to action.
Oh, yes. Okay, let's start with that. That's a good one. Brian, what will be your call to action today, sir? And Graham, what will be your call to action today, sir? Let's start off with that. Let's hear from you. We'll wait for him to kind of tap it in here in a second. And
that doesn't constitute a dinner, Chris. He's got to be on live, okay?
Got to be live.
Got to be live to get that dinner, okay?
Okay. But until we wait for them to write their call to action, Stephen, what will be your call to action today?
Well, I would think that it's really encourage people to look at themselves. You talk about connecting earlier, and sometimes as we start to grow, and we encourage people to grow with us and alongside us, is look at ourselves a lot. I know I have to look at myself because I can be very way out there, but just look at yourself and be the change you want to be, and encourage others to be there, and step in there without any fear and express that, so they don't have fear. They're not scared of you. They're not afraid you're going to take something away from them. You know, they're not afraid you're there to get something from them. You know, which probably in reality we get a lot by having that attitude from people, but it's them first, right? It's them first.
All right. Well, this is what Graham just said for his call to action. This is what he said. Think about how I can ask bigger questions, then start asking them. Graham, that is good. I love that. Now, Brian, we got to get a Brianism call to action from you again today. So please, sir, don't disappoint. We'd like to hear that. Miss Carlo, what say you?
I love what Stephen was saying about looking at yourself, and I was writing down some things so I wouldn't forget them and not interject too quickly and listen instead. But we can be so self-critical of ourselves, and we need to stop that negative self-talk. We are, no matter what you're doing, starting a new business, starting a new job, whatever, you're one step away from success, and don't give up. Yes, it's going to be messy, but I'll take messy over no action any day of the week.
Yep.
And I will tell you 100% for sure, it's going to be messy. You're going to make mistakes, and you're going to grow from them, find better ways to do whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. I love what you said, Stephen, about being the change you want to see in other people. And when you're positive about who you are and what you want to be, and to be that change, let's just say you find somebody that you can connect with that's a very positive person. That person is going to help you be the change you want to see in others. And your connection with your friends and contacts are going to change, because some people are going to say, oh, you're just too positive for me. And you know what? They don't realize that we all have negative moments. But you know what? I'm not dimming my light because you can't handle my life. I'm going to be me. And if you want to come along for the ride, come on, let's go. It's like Herman Cain used to say here in Atlanta, those that are going with us, get on the wagon. If you're not getting on the wagon, get out of the way. Because I'm not going to sit idle and neutral. I'm going to take action. And that's exactly what we are doing and what we're growing with, bringing humanity together.
Amen. Yes. Miss Sandy, your call to action, ma'am.
Well, I think, again, you've got to think positively. You've got to let your fear and your negativity slide away. And you've got to keep moving forward. I agree with Carla that, a new job, a new position, a new whatever, there will be mistakes because there's a learning process. There's a learning curve. And what you have to do is you just have to learn from those mistakes and move forward. Problem solve, get some help, ask more questions, whatever. But we need to change. We need to continually change and move forward. And that can only happen if you're a bouncer, if you're positive.
Bouncer, yeah.
Yeah. And when you have positive approaches to things, it doesn't matter if you screw up. You stand back and you go, okay, well, that was a mistake, kind of a stupid mistake, but anyway, that's all right. We can fix that. And then move forward and learn from that mistake and don't repeat it. So it's just a matter of understanding yourself and listening to your colleagues so that you understand them as well as you can. And then things will work, and they will, and everybody will.
Well, my call to action would be simply this. Make that conscious choice. And I'll learn this from Brian so well, because choice to me is the ultimate path to freedom. Make the choice to do the right thing that will work good for you. Because again, I believe in this too as well. If you do the right thing and you know it's the right thing to do, you can't go wrong with right. So just understand your place in space that is in a business dynamic, community dynamic, whatever that might be. Just recognize what you're bringing to the table, number one. Not only be honest to yourself, but be honest to others why you're doing it, or what you're doing and how you're doing it. And again, simply go to where they are. Go to where they are. And if you go to where they are and you don't expect people to come to where you are, then that's how you can build bridges, plant seeds, and understand the real dynamic of how people work and why they do things in the way that they do. Because if we can step outside of the model of the world that we work under and recognize what works good for Carla or what works good for Sandy or Steven or Graham or Brian, and we can understand that, that's going to build a bigger bridge and it's going to create a bigger dynamic and it's going to create that bigger momentum swing that in the like of which we never seen before because we are allowing it to occur. So that will be my call to action.
Great one.
So, alrighty. So we're going to be on tap tomorrow for Conversations for Humanity, and I got something great planned for you guys. So stay tuned for tomorrow. There's going to be a great video involved in this, and it's not going to be from John C. Maxwell. Something different.
Okay.
So just a reminder. But it's going to involve a party. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
All righty.
All right,
Thank you guys for joining me again today for this another great and engaging conversations here with Sharon, Kara, Sandy. We want to see you tomorrow for Humanity Happy Hour, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good.
Bye-bye.
I'll be there. Bye.